Welcome back to Midpoint. Let us also welcome back Theodore Johnson, columnist for The Atlantic and also syndicated radio talker, The Right Side with Armstrong Williams. Armstrong, I want to come to you because you brought up an interesting point in all this with regard to Black America being a country and the power that they can then put forward here. Were you then speaking about the social responsibility? Because you mentioned a lot of people out there having kids out of wedlock. You mentioned a lot of those being issues with the black community. But is that a social responsibility and a life responsibility that perhaps many people in Black America need to undertake?
Well, look, you're not going to create sustainable wealth, a thriving economy, a thriving family, a thriving education unless you respect family, unless you respect morals, responsibility, accountability. If you want to get rich, you need economic growth. And to create economic growth, you need people to become creative. You need people to be responsible. You need the people to realize that you cannot have an overwhelming number of babies out of wedlock. You cannot drop out of high school. You cannot find most of your best and brightest in the penal system. And you also understand most people that create sustained wealth and generational wealth overwhelmingly come from a two-parent household. So that is very critical. And also, you got to understand the rule of law. What makes creating wealth so effective and so efficient and so sustaining in America is because of the rule of law. You look at a place like Nigeria and other places in Africa, and you see how the government how leaders can just go in and plunder the wealth, because there are no rules like what we have in the United States, where the president of the United States just cannot go in and plunder the wealth.
Okay.
You have no rule of law.
Let me go ahead and get there.
So you've got to have that in place.
I want to make sure Ted gets in here too, because Ted, in your article, you talked about the Black America being a country, one side of it, a troubled, fragile state suffering from socioeconomic disparities and structural subjugation. Isn't that in many ways, using a lot of syllables here, but basically much of what Armstrong just said?
No, actually,
Okay.
Because his focus is on wealth. And what I'm talking about is just fundamental American liberties. Never mind wealth. A two-parent home where both are teachers won't get wealthy. I'm not talking about wealth. I'm talking about liberty. And what the problem is the country that Black America lives in is not structured in a way that provides them equal access to opportunities as it does the rest of the country. So there's some structural issues here, and this isn't about hard work and personal responsibility alone, because Black America can't pull itself up, can't close these disparities all on its own. We're part of a broader country, a great country, and it requires the whole country to help close those disparities.
Ted, do you agree with that?
This is not an issue of Black disparity or Black wealth. This is an issue of a fundamental understanding of liberty and what our country proposes to be, and how the country as a whole can address the disparities that the Black Americans face.
Armstrong, I got about a minute left. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely not. I mean, obviously he's talking about another America. You've seen so many blacks in this country come from de jure segregation and the civil rights movement, and they created incredible wealth when the laws were not really in place. Imagine that the laws being in place. Now, remember the invisible hand that's in place. Now, remember all these elected officials. You have the first American who happens to be Black who's president. You have all these members of Congress, members of the Congressional Black Caucus that fight to ensure that there's a playing field. The problem is that many people are not equipped to take advantage of the playing field, because it's just like the immigrant song. The reason why they can come in and take advantage of it, they have a blank piece of paper and they see nothing but opportunity, not shackles, as that man still has on his brain.
All right, 30 seconds left. Ted, you get the last word here.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what he's addressing there. The question again is about liberty. It's not about wealth. If anything, it's a wealth of liberty that Black America is suffering from. And if we can close that gap, the economics, the opportunity, the unemployment stats, the incarceration stats, the poverty stats will take care of themselves. But until we have access to the same America that everyone else does, until we get the same fair shake and equal opportunity everyone else does, then the incarceration rates and poverty are just indicators of the sort of experience we have here.
You both brought up excellent points. We're all out of time, but I'll tell you, I'd love to have the both of you back again, because we've now opened up a whole new set of doors here into how we get to that point that Ted was just talking about. I think we'll have to do that soon. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Ted Johnson, Armstrong Williams, always a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, next hour here on Midpoint, another of those nagging things we always knew about the NFL and no one was willing to say out loud. It's coming up right here on Midpoint.